It's no surprise that I've had a lot of cars over the years. I mean, I've had a lot of different things. I've had American cars, Japanese cars, Korean cars, new, old, race cars, street cars. I've had a lot. I've never actually sat down and analyzed them and see which ones were indeed good cars and bad in my experience. Disclaimer, this is purely subjective. Some of these cars could objectively be good cars. This is just my personal experiences with these cars. So don't get too worked up over this list. Actually, it surprised me a little bit because some of the cars that I thought would be lower, the way I ranked them and scored them actually ended up higher on the list. And I do have a scoring system. So I'm going to quickly explain that without getting boring. But basically, we're looking at three major categories that all the cars I've had. Overall reliability, cost of ownership, which includes fuel, maintenance, repairs, and modifications. And then the most important category for me was fun. Did that car make me smile? Did I enjoy driving it? Each vehicle can receive the best score of a 30 or a -30, depending on how I score them. After scoring, some vehicles did tie, and the way I broke the tiebreaker was I determined which vehicle I would want back again the most, and that's how I ranked that one over the other. So with that all out of the way, let's go ahead into the list of my many cars, 10 cars that I've had over the years, where we're going to rank them from the worst to the best, starting with number 10, the absolute worst car as I've scored them, the Taurus SHO. I'm going to bring up my scoring here. I'm going to slide me over here. And we're going to take a look at how I scored these. So this is my scoring model here. And for the SHO, it's right here. Up here, we have a reliability column, CO, cost of ownership, and then fun. For reliability, it gave the SHO a -10 because it was not very reliable. Did it leave me stranded? No, but it definitely left me in some very tough spots where it was broke. I bought it at 67,000 miles and I put about 40,000 on it. And in that 40,000 miles, I had the transmission resealed. I've had the PTU replaced. The cam phasers were knocking like crazy. And there was a slew of other problems. The knock sensors went bad. I had to replace. It was one thing after another. And it was starting to become a money pit, which is why I ended up getting rid of it. As fun as the car was, in the sense that it was fast, it was quick. It was a quick, comfortable car. Reliability wasn't its strong point, which means it has an overall high cost of ownership, gave it a -10 points. Fuel was bad on that car. I mean, when I was running my E30 blend tune on that car, 16 miles to the gallon. If I was just doing a 93 tune, 18 to 20, depending on how I was driving, which isn't great. Not at all. Was bad on gas. Lots of maintenance, lots of things. So -10 for liability, -10 for overall cost of ownership. But it gets a +5. It gets a +5 for fun because it wasn't really that fun to drive, but because it would just plant you in the seat, the all-wheel drive launches, that gave it definitely a edge in the fun factor. So that's why it scored what it did. If it wasn't for it being so unreliable, it would have scored so much higher. But it scored a -15, putting it in last place, but only because it tied with the Fiero, which is going to be our number 9 spot. Now, the Fiero, oh my goodness, that car. Well, the type of car it was a basket case, okay? It was a race car. When you have a race car, you have race car problems. And I never had a race car until that car, and I realized what that saying means because it had a lot of problems. It came with the nature of the car, and it was completely custom. Like a lot of the work done is custom, you know, it didn't come with that engine. People swap it in. A very one-of-a-kind car that needed one-of-a-kind treatment. And yeah, it wasn't reliable. It's not a car you could really take out and drive for extended periods of time comfortably without worrying about something going wrong. It was a car built to be beat on, break, and then be fixed again, repeat and rinse. It's a race car. That's what it does. The Fiero was -10 on reliability because everything had to be custom made for the most part, or the parts that I had to use were expensive or had to be modified from other cars in order to work. Cost of ownership, extremely high. And then +5 for fun. And you're probably thinking to yourself, how could it only be +5? That thing was like supercharged and manual. And yeah, it was. Except it was the most visceral driving experience I've had at any of my cars. It was at some points almost painful to drive. The suspension was so stiff. The shifter was just a little wonky. The clutch was so stiff. If you were in traffic, it wasn't the best driving experience, but it was still fun in the sense that it was a supercharged V6 powered manual Fiero with like 2,600 pounds and 250 wheel horsepower at the time. It was quick. It was fun, and it caught a lot of attention because of how it looked. So yeah, it only got a +5 in the fun factor because of the visceralness of it kind of took away from it. It wasn't a car that I was going to take out on long trips. I really wanted to get into racing with that car, and it was literally supposed to only live on a racetrack, but it never got there, unfortunately. So moving on from the Fiero comes to our number 8th spot, which is the 2020 HPP Ecoboost Buster. Yeah. I was hoping this car would not have scored this low, but after really tallying it all together, its only redeeming quality was it was a super fun car to drive. But in my experience with it, anyone who's watched the channel knows that car has caused me the most issues out of all my cars, even though it ranked higher than the SHO. Just the way the scoring system is allowed it to do so. And merely only because it was a better, more fun car to drive. If the SHO was a 10, that would have been evenly matched. Reliability, for the first 47,000 miles, it was mostly reliable. It had a couple small issues that I was able to fix relatively easily, even though I had some concerns about it. The dealership brushed it off like it was nothing wrong with the car, and wasn't really too much of a problem. Until it was very much a problem. Then came the overall cost of ownership. Original engine setup and everything, it actually wouldn't have been too bad. It was pretty good on fuel. 25 miles to the gallon average. E30 blend, you were looking at low 20s, which wasn't bad considering all things. But if you were just running standard 93, it was getting mid to upper 20s, no problem with the 10-speed automatic. And gas, it was great for a Mustang. Everything else, it was bad because I ended up pretty much paying about $8,000 for a new engine and then a bunch of upgrades, just like, I'm going to build it. So here we go. So the cost of ownership skyrocketed because of that. I've put a lot of money in that car just to end up getting rid of it because it was going to cost me even more money when the transmission went out. Because of that, it both scored a -10 on both those categories. As I said earlier, its only redeeming factor was it was actually a really fun car to drive, especially when it started getting some real good power. I mean, I was estimating probably low 400 wheel horsepower range. It was scooting pretty good. Oh, woo! It was a fun car to drive, and it looked good. Looked good for an EcoBoost. So that was number 8. So then that brings me to number 7, my 1992 Mustang LX convertible. This car had a short-lived timeline on my channel because I didn't get to do what I need to do with it before a terrible accident claimed its life, along with one of the other cars on the list. If you watch the channel, you know what I'm talking about. If not, I'll get to that in a second. But I bought it as a automatic 4-cylinder LX car. My goal was to do a 2.3 turbo manual swap. That's what I wanted. I really wanted that. I thought that had been a fun build, something different. Not everyone does that with the Fox bodies, and just wanted to be a little different, have a little bit different kind of fun with a Fox body. But I never got to that point, so I only got to experience it as a automatic 4-cylinder no turbo Mustang with stock everything. And, you know, stuff was old, things were rusty, definitely needed work, it needed TLC. But before I started messing with it, it drove fine. So overall, gave it a 5 on reliability, a +5. So it actually wasn't a terrible, unreliable car until I started messing with it. Then it became unreliable, just because I couldn't get it figured out. Cost of ownership, -5. Like I said, as it, you know, a lot of things were going to need to be replaced. Things were breaking left and right as they were aging. A lot of the stuff I just ended up removing, rather than just trying to fix it, like the AC system and all that, just out of the car. Out it went. AC delete. Weight savings, bro. A -5 for fun. It was still kind of fun to drive because I put the ratchet shifter in there and I made it so it was pretty much a semi-automatic. You still had like to manually shift it with the ratchet shifter. And then it's the top-down experience. Was it fast? No, it was the slowest, documented, slowest car I've ever had. 0 to 60 in like 14 seconds or something.
Officially the slowest car I have ever owned. 14.2 seconds.
It was ridiculously slow. But it still had some fun factor to it. Just a little. And that's why it scored in that spot. Ahead of the 92 Mustang, we go to my very first car. 1993 Ford Taurus GL. Yes, very first car. Never on the channel. And I'd like to mind you, a few of these cars were technically mine. They were mine to drive, but I did not own them. That's only 3 on the list. This is one of them. You know, first car. My parents were nice enough to get my first car from a friend. Got it pretty cheap. You know how that goes. Everyone's first car is always something old and beat up. But this was actually in good shape. It was around 103,000 miles, I think, when it was given to me. And it was a good running car. I only had one problem with it, reliability, where it popped the coolant hose. And, you know, we had to do a parking lot repair in the middle of the night in a sketchy neighborhood. And really, we didn't have to do too much to it. You know, a couple things broke here and there, upgraded the spark plugs, you know, had to replace the ignition, you know, distributor cap, ignition cap, and all that. Small maintenance things, not a big deal. Nothing major ever went wrong with the car. Drove fine up until I got rear-ended by some crazy lady who was under the influence. And yeah, did pretty good on gas. Never really had a problem with that. And really didn't have to put much money into it. It was not very fun to drive. In the moment, at the time, it probably was fun to me, but after all the cars I've had, looking back on it, no, it was not a fun car to drive. So it gets -10 points, leaving it with a total score of 5, and that's where it lies in the list. So moving on from that, we're going to our number 5th spot, 2009 Ford Focus SE. This is the blue car, the blue Focus you see in all my videos. Not my car personally, but I am responsible for taking care of it, and I drive it a lot, just the same as the person who owns it, which is the other half, the missus in the household. And it's her car, but it's been in my life for longer than most of my cars have been. It's stayed around because it's been a pretty good car, but it hasn't been perfect. Things are breaking here and there. It is having some issues, but it's only left us stranded once, in the sense that the idler pulley for the serpentine belt broke and left her stranded and had to go do a parking lot repair. It is aging now, and there are things going wrong. Like I think the evaporator, the AC is got a hole in it leaking, so we have no more AC, and that's not fun to replace. So there's that. The thermostat seems to be sticking every now and again. It'll get stuck open, so then the car runs really cool, which is not necessarily a bad thing in the summertime in Florida, but it will throw a check engine light saying, hey, coolant temperature out of range. And then into wintertime, when you want heat, sometimes you don't get it. And we've replaced like the struts and some wearable stuff, brakes, and a few other things, gaskets and whatnot, but never any major issues with the engine or transmission. It's got over like 110,000 miles now. We've had it since 30,000 miles. And really, we just maintain it, put gas in it, and drive it. And so while not perfect reliability, not the worst, and 5 for cost of ownership because we, still have to put some money into it, but not too much, just your normal maintenance. And -10 for fun to drive because it's a zippy car, but it's not a manual, it's an automatic, and it handles like crap. It's not meant to be that kind of car. So it gets a low score on the fun to drive scale for me. So that puts it in 5th place. Going to 4th place, this is a car not many people know about. Once again, it predates the channel, but when my first car, the 93 Taurus, was destroyed in the accident, basically my parents were like, hey, just take our family car. We're going to get something new anyways. And so they gave me the family car, which was a 1999 Toyota Camry V6 with a lot of miles on it. I got the car at like 190 some thousand miles. This was like in 2010, 2011, somewhere around there. And we had the car since like 2001 or 2000 even. I mean, yeah, it was around a long time. It's a 90s Toyota, man. What more can I say? They are the epitome of reliability. We had hardly any issues with that car. We've had to replace a couple things, couple gaskets, your spark plug, serpentine belt, your wearable items, struts, tires, but never did we ever have to replace anything in the engine, never had to replace anything in the transmission, other than change the fluids and all of that. And that car lived to well over 200,000 miles before we ended up getting rid of it, because I ended up giving it back to my parents after I bought one of the other cars on the list. So that was an impeccably reliable car. But because it was a Toyota Camry, it was kind of quick, being the V6. But it wasn't winning any races, and it wasn't super fun. -10. It was a floaty car, didn't handle that great. It was a Camry, it wasn't supposed to be. So, but because of its reliability, it puts it up pretty high in the list. That's why it scored number 4. Now we're on to our final 3, and I'm happy one of these cars makes the final 3. And I'm surprised one of these cars actually made 2nd place, just because I never really thought about it. And like I said, I never analyzed my cars like this until now. So it puts a different perspective on how I rank them, because I am kind of biased towards some of my cars, which my most biased car, because I love this thing. I had a love-hate relationship with it. My 97 Cobra. Oh, God, I love that car. It was a basket case too. I got a good price on it, but it had a lot of miles, 147,000 miles, I think. And I wasn't easy on it. I was at first, and then I got more used to it. There was a point where I was having problems with tuning with it. Like it just wouldn't run. Come to find out, it was just the aftermarket mass airflow sensor housing that the car came with. Just was being goofy. I got that sorted out. Fuel pump went up. Got that sorted out. Timing chain guide broke, got that sorted out. Then I started having oil leaks with the valve covers and everything. So, it was just kind of like snowballing one thing after another. And then there was a point in time where I actually got it all good. I'm like, hey, this car is solid. We're not having any problems. And I drove it pretty much problem free for a while. And then it started giving me problems again. So, but they weren't major. It was just small things. The car was aging. I was driving it harder. It was just one little thing here, one little thing there. And it started adding up. So at that point in time, that's when I decided to get the SHO. I'm like, I'm going to get this as my daily. That way I don't have to keep worrying about, is this damn Cobra going to start today and get me to work? So I get it fully figured out, which unfortunately I never did, because anyone who knows the channel, who knows the history of my cars, knows that that car was my favorite, and it was also a nightmare because it ended up catching fire, and it ended up taking itself and the blue 92 Fox body with it. Not a fun day. But it was still one of my favorite cars. It gets a -5 on reliability. It gets a +5 on cost of ownership, because even though a lot of stuff happened, it was all small things. Nothing major broke. And then +10 for driving. That was by far my most favorite and most fun car I've ever had to drive. Like, I kind of wish I did my scoring system differently so that could rank higher there, but it gets max points there. So yeah, number 3 for the Cobra, which makes you wonder, well, what the hell could be number 2? This one actually surprised me. Number 2 was my first Fox body, the 1993 5-liter LX Coupe. This was my first Fox body, and I love this car, but it was terrible. I didn't realize it at the time. Fox bodies are not really good cars. They can be made good cars, but in factory or mostly stock form, they are just horrible vehicles. And not in the sense of reliability, but just they don't drive well, they don't handle well. And it's really the aftermarket that makes those cars special and desirable, is because you can pretty much make them how you want them. But if you ever find a mostly stock Fox body, especially one that's got some miles on it, it's not the best driving experience. It really didn't give me that much problems. It did leave me stranded once. One of the worst parking lot repairs I've ever had to make. Dead of winter, the fuel pump went out. So me and my buddy, thankfully he was nice enough to help, went to work that day. I went to go out to start my car, and this is dead of winter in Maryland, which was like in February. It was one of the coldest months. And I went out to my car, cranking, not starting. I'm like, oh no, like what is going on? And at this time, I wasn't really as knowledgeable as I am now about cars. So I called my friend who was a little bit more knowledgeable than me at that moment in time. And I'm like, hey man, my car ain't working. You think you can help me figure this out? He comes over. He's like, dude, I think your fuel pump went out. I'm like, you serious? He's like, yeah, I don't hear it running. And I'm like, oh crap. So we end up basically replacing that fuel pump that night. I couldn't feel my toes by the end of that repair. We're on the ground with snow on the parking lot, on the ground, trying to jack this thing up on ice, replacing this fuel pump. Yeah, I drove that in the winter. It got me around. Actually, it didn't give me too many issues. And honestly, the skinny tires actually were probably a benefit in the snow, because it kind of just like sliced through the snow. It was not that bad, but it was the only time it left me stranded. Other than that, it was small things here and there, just like any other old car has, that especially all the other ones on my list. And then because of that, overall cost of ownership wasn't that bad. I didn't have to put much money into it repairing things. I didn't put much money into it upgrading either, because I just wasn't ready for that kind of experience yet with cars. And then fun factor, +5, because it was still a fun car. You got this big loud V8. It was an automatic. But it was an automatic with a shift kit. So it would bark the tires, but with a mostly stock 5-liter, you're looking at low 200 wheel horsepower, probably not even that. You're probably high 190 wheel horsepower or whatever. Yeah, so it was torquey, but it wasn't quick. Just because it was light, being the coupe with the lightweight wheels, it had a fiberglass hood, so it didn't weigh a whole lot, is the only thing that made that car feel as quick as it was. But it wasn't fast, but it was still fun to drive. It made awesome V8 noises. It turned heads. And yeah, so it was number 2, and that really surprised me. So well, for some reason, we're having some technical difficulties with the audio in that section. I was just about to announce the last car, the number 1 on the list, and you pretty much know what it is. And this car has an unfair advantage because it's way too new in my fleet of cars. And so there hasn't been time for anything to really go wrong yet for me to rank it lower. So it is what it is. But nonetheless, that's no other than the new Hyundai Elantra. Yep, the Elantra scored the highest because I've had it the least amount of time. So there hasn't been enough time for it to prove to me otherwise. It hasn't had enough time to give me problems and to rank it lower. So as of now, it's been flawless. 10 on reliability. Does it have some issues that I'm concerned about? Yeah. Has it actually given me a problem? No. Cost of ownership so far, the parts I've gotten for it have been pretty reasonable. Aftermarket parts, the upgrades. And then it does great on gas. It's probably the best out of all the cars that I've had for fuel efficiency. I mean, easily mid to upper 30 miles per gallon. Pretty good on gas. And maintenance, I'm not expecting it to cost a whole lot either. Fun to drive. Is it fun car to drive? It is. It's fun to a certain point, but it's not like the most fun thing you can drive. It's not the most fun thing I've had, but it's not fun to drive. You know what I'm saying? So it does score a 5, but even then that gives it almost a dang near perfect score. Crazy to think Hyundai ranked that high, but that's what it is. Like I said, it had an unfair advantage being too dang new. And it's just, these are my experiences with my cars. Everyone's experiences are different. So this isn't like a objective list, just my list. That's all. Otherwise, that's pretty much it. Let me know what you think about all of the cars, how they've been to me, how you think they've ranked. If you think any of these cars should have been higher or lower, tell me where you think they should have been on the list. Put them in the comments. Otherwise, going to wrap it up here for the video. If you like the video, please give it a thumbs up. Share with everyone you know. If you want to see more content like this and you haven't already, go ahead and subscribe to the channel. Keep a lookout for the next Cars Created video.